fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy skin and we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
What people do in no money, what you at you, it no at you. Covid money, miss away in the year, little rat you. Use the youth, the money, waste and bust a man to statue. Say me like a cash, but bigger than a figure you. Take the script of money, God and say that it's not you. On the head, the man above end up, him a got up. Too much it in the kitchen, some a fly by like a patu. The singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me
300% free.
It burn me
garbage pile of the day.
It burn me
Give the teacher them raise.
It burn me
I see corruption face.
It burn me
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me
And them a sell out the beach.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy skin and we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
For me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The 100 the promises, none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth, they rap and they down in our fever. Member bowl money and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like thief when them sell.
It burn me
Or they treat the market man.
It burn me
Or them a treat the cat man.
It burn me
Or they treat the peanut man.
It burn me
Or them a treat the dirt man.
It burn me
Or them a treat the son man.
It burn me
Or them a treat policeman.
It burn me
How them a treat soldier man.
It burn me
How them a treat everyone.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy skin and we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't.
Boom! I mean, I say a couple to the flex they represent for Wayne Global TV. So I say, you know the code in the Wayne Global TV is what fully blessed on 90 days. So I say, yeah man, to the fullest. Yeah man, make sure them log in to Wayne Global TV. So I say, check it out. So I say, one cup of flex. So I say, Wayne Global. When you watch you know, film a plan up and a try to put them on it and we head. But man, I live too long, them want Wayne Global fitted. To him juggle so smooth that them want him life for dread. I through the bank, I like the miracle, but we ain't all about the bread. We open up in the ears and no listen when we said, cause we lyrics them so smooth like the linen on the bed. Them one with a fall, we living on the edge, I must say true, make this them. We ain't Global TV, we are 90, and 90. Who Jaja bless, say no man can curse. Give me the Range Rover, uno drive yours. Boom! We ain't Global TV to the fullest one cup of excellence, see me?
It is my understanding that the postmortem for the late Reverend Moore was done today, and the cause of death was determined to be strangulation. It's not really surprising because we had that suspicion. So far, we have no evidence or any suspicion based on our investigation that a third party was traveling with him. But the investigation is open, and we're appealing to the public if they have any information to call our NIB tip line at 811, Crime Stop at 311, or Police Emergency 811. But we continue to do lines of inquiries. We have been able to, based on we have seen sight of the Reverend at different points of the journey. And we have not seen where there was a third party or a second person in the vehicle with him.
A pastor on the pulpit with trust and so-called credibility that gained public trust. A deputy commissioner of police with portfolio for crime and security regularly lies to those who employ him to serve. Do you feel safe in a country where your assistant commissioner with the portfolio for crime and security regularly lies on camera, and as we now know, has covered up many high-profile crime or has attempted to cover up many high-profile crime? Good evening and welcome to Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global. If you're in London, good evening. Are you home yet, or are you traveling home in this dismal weather outside? If you're on the Eastern timeline in the North America and the Caribbean side of things, what is happening this your lunchtime? Good evening to everyone on the live and welcome to Global Television. This is your evening Drive Time London Lunchtime Global program. This evening we're questioning FITZ BAILEY. But before I do so, I want to do my usual hello to you all. Good evening, Amazing Grace. Good evening, Debbie Jervis. Good evening, Nicole. Good evening, Sunshine. Good evening, Patricia Matthews. Good evening, Abina. Good evening, Natalia. Good evening, Jason. Good evening. Who else is here? Good evening, Jamaica Foodie. Good evening, Elijah. Who else is here? Yes. Good evening to those of you who are already here. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this another of our evening's broadcast. FITZ BAILEY. Not just, good evening, Senorita. Not just the Deputy Assistant Commissioner of Police with his portfolio for crime and security. Thus said the Lord, he is one of those, a man of the cloth, FITZ BAILEY. He is one of those. Thus said the Lord. Regularly, it is becoming now for FITZ BAILEY to openly in public cover up crime. And not only that, but lied blatantly to us in his pursuit of his cover-up of crime. FITZ BAILEY has been awarded Order of Distinction. Good evening, Angela. Good evening. A quote taken from an article in the Jamaica Information Service. The article is in the description area. You can read the whole article for yourself. But a quote taken from that article in relation to what FITZ BAILEY was saying when he got that award. I think it was in 2021, I think. I accept and I will ensure that I will live up to the dignity and honor of an honor that is associated with the award, and I will continue to maintain the dignity and honor of the JCF and continue to be an upstanding citizen, not only in terms of my service as a police officer, but also as I serve within the church, I offer voluntary service at the highest level within the Christian church organization. As I'm a minister of religion, as I'm a minister of religion too, and I am a marriage officer, so I will continue to do that service, said FITZ BAILEY. I will continue to do that service, said FITZ BAILEY, when he was awarded Order of Distinction for his services to the Jamaica Constabulary Force. But by then, FITZ BAILEY had already been lying to us. By then, FITZ BAILEY had already been lying to us. Sorry, that was what I was reading from. By then, when FITZ BAILEY was awarded, Dorothy, good evening and welcome. When FITZ BAILEY was given the Order of Distinction for his services to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and he said what he said on the screen here in a longer statement that you can read for yourself. He lied. He was lying to us then. And those above him within the government and the civil service would have known FITZ BAILEY was lying and covering up a crime. But then it wouldn't matter. Why would it? Because that crime, or one of the first crimes we're talking about, is the crime committed in the house. The crime committed in the house of the attorney, of the then attorney to Andrew Holness, because he's not only a murderer, but also a crook. Because if you remember, Patrick Bailey is also struck off the off the bar by the General Legal Counsel. 2016, the murder in Patrick Bailey's house. The crime scene at Patrick Bailey's house in 2016 is still yet an open, unsolved cover-up crime. It has to be a cover-up. It have to be a cover-up. It was Patrick Bailey. It was FITZ BAILEY who told us. It was FITZ BAILEY who told us that there was no break-in and entry. Before I go on to Patrick Bailey and the others, I want to, from my understanding, it may not be so, but explain to you the structure of how the JCF crime fighting mechanism from top down should work. Now you have which is the policy side. You have which is the administrative side. And you have what is called the operational side. The policy side is where Dr. Chang comes in. Ministry for National Security. This is Dr. Chang's portfolio to make sure his department formulate the policies, formulate the necessary and appropriate crime fighting policies, and also, along with the cabinet, provide the necessary funding to those below who this policy is going down to. Then from Dr. Chang, who deals with the policy, the administrative side is dealt with by the not so well able to string a few sentences together, Anthony Anderson, the Commissioner of Police. He is responsible to put the administrative, these policies, he must break them down into strategies, strategies and guidelines for the police to work with. Then it goes down to those below Anthony Anderson, the fleet of deputy commissioners. But we're zooming in this evening on FITZ Bailey's portfolio. So FITZ Bailey is responsible for the operational side of crime and security. Those policies that comes down from Ministry of National Security, that is created, that from that strategies and all sort of guideline and code of practice and all that is created from those and from and around those policies, with the necessary funding coming down the line with all of this, that goes to the front line, which is the operational team, the rank and file, the fleet of brown uniform, and the rank and files below them. If the policy is there, which the crime policy we were promised, we still have not seen, those policies could have been put into planning and operational strategies by the commissioner's office, so that those on the operational front, which is FITZ Bailey and those below, that fleet of deputy commissioner and those below, on the operational front, have the necessary strategies, guidelines, code of ethics, and everything that they need to do a rounded and robust crime fighting. If all of that is there and all is stringed together, thank you, Debbie, thank you. If all of that is there and all of that is stringed together, maybe we would have a better crime fighting mechanism in our country. But at the policy level, we're still waiting for the policy from the government, the cabinet, and the Ministry of National Security. We have the administrative front, which is the commissioner's office, which is run by an inexperienced, not well able to string a few sentences well together for himself, member of the JDF. Member of the JDF running the JCF. So therefore, because there is no policy and there is inexperience at the administrative level and lack of funding, coupled by corruption, then there's a wahala rather, of everything that doesn't engage in the crime fighting we expect and want to see in order to make us safe, feel safe. None of that is there, because those three limbs, the policy side, the administrative side, and the operational side, the policy is not there. there's incompetency in the administrative side, and on the operational side, we have a person like FITZ BAILEY who is a corrupt liar. But I want to ask Andrew Holness and Mark Golding, if you, at our next general election, take over the reins of government, consider this question also. There is a well-respected police inspector at the Hunts Bay Police, Inspector Ritchie. But on the ground, those of you who know him as the name Law and Order. Why was he given the name Law and Order? Because that officer is an officer who believes in the oath of his office. Is it true, Andrew Holness, that Law and Order, Inspector Ritchie, is the only officer that take your badman friend, Pilly Black's gun off him, when none of the other corrupt police would do it? Law and Order, Inspector Ritchie of Hunts Bay Police Station, took your friend Pilly Black's gun off him. What is your problem with Law and Order? Why such a competent, dedicated to crime fighting law enforcement, and none of you seem to want to give him the opportunity? None of you want to seem to give him the opportunity to show his competency on a national scale, the way he showed his competency within his area of Hunts Bay. If you are interested in crime fighting, Andrew Holness, Horace Chang, and Anthony Anderson, why don't you give? FITZ BAILEY has proven time and time that he is a corrupt, not just a corrupt police, but also a corrupt man of God. That's what FITZ BAILEY has shown many times, that he's not only a corrupt police, but he's also a corrupt man of God. Why don't you give Inspector Ritchie the portfolio that FITZ BAILEY have? Because FITZ BAILEY for years has not done the country service. What is the problem with Inspector Ritchie? Is it because if Inspector Ritchie is being given the portfolio, if Inspector Ritchie has been given the portfolio that FITZ BAILEY has, a person like Horace Chang would be arrested? Because if rank and file JDF members are to the hilt with Chang's corruption, especially with his illegal gun trade and the arming of community like flankers and possible Norwood in the Montego Bay area, and possible other garrisons, because the cheap busload of guns, after distributing guns in flanker, the 3 busload of gun that Dr. Chang dispersed across the country. We are still yet to know where those other guns went to. This is the crime, the people we have at the helm of our crime fighting. Good evening, Sharon Powell. Good evening and welcome. So back to FITZ BAILEY. Back to FITZ BAILEY and his cover-ups. Now, Patrick Bailey, the Prime Minister, the former attorney for Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. A murder committed in Patrick Bailey's residence. This was in, I think, 2016. A gruesome murder committed in Patrick Bailey's residence, where the young man on the screen next to Patrick Bailey, Jermaine Jr., was stabbed over 20 times, and he was also shot in former attorney for Andrew Holness' house. To date, that case is unsolved. One second. Today, that case is unsolved. Nobody done it. If that is the case, then we have to accept that there's a Shirley Duppyism. For those of my generation, you would understand the reference. There is a Shirley Duppyism in high society Jamaica. Because people can just murder gruesomely. Murdered gruesomely in a house. No breaking and entry. But because of Patrick Bailey's connection to the Prime Minister, no proper investigation was done. He's not a suspect. He's not being arrested and charged. FITZ Bailey told us all of that. There's no suspect. No nothing. Shirley Duppy just come in, killed, stab up the man, shoot the man, and then nobody does it. Of the 4 cover-up we're exploring for FITZ Bailey this evening, that was the first big one. There's another one I'm going to explore that I forget, but I'm not going to go deep into that because I didn't read up much on that date-wise and everything, but I'm going to touch on it. And before I touch on it, I'll go into the others. Before I go into the others, I will touch on it. Dr. Bloomfield, I think, was in the Portland area, who was murdered. The so-called suspect, on his first day at court, escaped from court, and to date haven't been recaptured. Another high-profile killing and cover-up. Just keep that Dr. Bloomfield in mind. I will come back to that, but I didn't remember when I was planning all of these. With all that cover-up of Patrick Bailey from 2016 onward, FITZ Bailey continue to lie to us and keep telling us about open investigation. What are you looking for? What evidence do you have? What line of inquiries did you follow? What forensic evidence did you gather? But as we see, they've always been allowed to clean up evidences, one currently in front of us at the moment. But then 2000 and was it 21 or 22? 2022, we have the Donnelly Donaldson murder. And just to show you Patrick Bailey and some of his high society friends. I wonder if any of them know what happened to that young man in Patrick Bailey's house that night. But then, next we come on to the 2022 murder, the 2022 killing of Donnelly Donaldson by her then boyfriend, Noel Maitland, who is awaiting trial. FITZ Bailey was also the lead on that investigation. FITZ Bailey continued to ignore Miss Sophia and wasn't given any information or any proper focus on the investigation. It wasn't until the voice recording between Noel Maitland and the truck driver, who may have allegedly removed, good evening, Chanel, good evening, remove Donnelly's body from Noel's apartment. It was never until that recording was put out in public, then things sped into action and took a different turn. It was a pressure of social media that assisted in that. If you remember from the recording, one could argue that FITZ Bailey was going to cover up or was in process of covering up the killing of Donnelly. Because I don't know how much of you remember where he told the truck driver, Noel told the truck driver that later he will be meeting up with FITZ Bailey. He didn't call him by his name, but by his title. Hey, Alison, good evening. How you doing? How you doing? Welcome. He told the truck driver that later on he's gonna meet up with FITZ Bailey, and he will have a conversation with him to find out where they've taken the truck to. So one could assume that before that recording went out, good evening, Safina. Before that recording went out, one could argue FITZ Bailey was in process or possibly in the process of a cover-up. Was in the process of a cover-up. Because at the time when he was in charge of that investigation, he was having drinks and conversation with the same police officer based on the information in the recording between Noel and the truckman. So that's another public sin of FITZ Bailey. Then last year, we have Reverend Moore. Sorry, we have Reverend Orville Moore last year. Let me remind you what FITZ Bailey said on camera last year with regards to to Reverend Moore.
It is my understanding that the postmortem for the late Reverend Orville Moore was done today, and the cause of death was determined to be strangulation. It's not really surprising because we had that suspicion. So far, we have no evidence or any suspicion based on our investigation that a third party was traveling with him. But the investigation is open, and we're appealing to the public. If they have any information, to call our NIB tip line at 811, Crime Stop at 311, or Police Emergency 811. But we continue to do lines of inquiries. We have been able to, based on we have seen sight of the Reverend at different points of the journey. And we have not seen where there was a third party or a second person in the vehicle with him.
That video I don't have to hand, but you may also remember a video where he was also given explanation of the crime scene from their investigation, and that's where they ruled out foul play. When FITZ Bailey said this, and that one which I'm referring to, FITZ Bailey was lying then. As we knew, he was exposed by Bishop Alvin Bailey. Is it Alvin Bailey? Yes. Bishop Alvin Bailey at Dr. Moore's funeral, at Reverend Moore's funeral. So that's another plain third cover-up of high-profile killing in public, where he lied to us deliberately, mislead us deliberately, have active suspect been investigating, lied to us in public that there's no suspect. When FITZ Bailey put this narrative out, who is he supporting? Is it that the killer of Dr. Moore is a friend of FITZ Bailey? Or is it that FITZ Bailey is taking instruction from those higher up who may have ordered Dr. Moore's killing? So that's 3 active cover-up. And just a bit of rollback on the Donnelly Donaldson case. Is it a matter of FITZ Bailey that the trial is struggling to go ahead because you have handed a botched investigation to the Crown Prosecution Service? Is it that the trial of Noel Maitland is not going ahead or keep getting pushback because you have handed a botched investigation to the Crown Prosecution Service? And by the time Madam time has passed or not enough evidence has had her way, we might not see justice for Donnelly Donaldson. Because it's one thing to take an accused to court, but it's another thing to be able to provide the evidence beyond reasonable doubt that that person committed the crime. And we have seen time and time after criminals get off of crime because a botched investigation was handed to the incompetent Crown Prosecution Service, who did not understand or notice that the evidence that was presented to them by the investigator would not be substantial enough. It would not be substantial, rather, to secure a conviction. In the case of Dr. Orville Moore, Reverend Orville Moore, when FITZ Bailey told us that blatant lie, who was FITZ Bailey covering up for? Who ordered the killing of Dr. Moore? Was it linked to the Ministry of Justice? Was it linked to the Correctional Services? Was it linked to the government, for that matter? Who carried out the killing? Is it member of the JDF? Is it mercenary or local hitmen? But while we're arguing and asking if it's the JDF, some have it. Some has it. That the crime scene, if you see the crime scene, there's no way Dr. Reverend Moore's car could get to where it was unless it was carefully placed there by a helicopter. Under no circumstances, at whatever speed some who've seen the investigation scene is saying, under no circumstances, Dr. Moore's, Reverend Moore's car wouldn't have got so fast, and it would have been severely damaged should it have to travel through all those rickety, tickety, bumpety, bory bit of Spurchy Hill there to get to where it got to, where the scene of the crime was. So it begs to ask the question, is member of the JDF involved in Reverend Moore's killing? And the lie FITZ Bailey told us, was that a lie coming from Ministry of Justice or from Correctional Service, from JDF top file, or from the government itself? Because it's plain to all of us now that Reverend Moore's killing was an assassination. Who ordered Reverend Moore's assassination? Was it Ministry of Justice, the Correctional Services, the government, the JDF? Who ordered Reverend Moore's assassination? And who gave FITZ Bailey the narrative? Hello, Nicola, good evening. The lying narrative that he gave us in public with regards to Reverend Moore. And FITZ Bailey's final sin that we're going to look at this evening is another active and open one in front of all of us. And we're talking about nothing other than the killing of the wife of the former politician, the former member of parliament. The killing of the wife of the former member of parliament. Who first died in her sleep. The killing of the wife of a former member of parliament. A former member of parliament which still has close ties to Mark Golden, because it was Mark Golden first that start the condolence tirade that Mr. Silvera got following the so-called peaceful death of his wife. The so-called peaceful death of his wife. But then in mid-December, we learn not so. Mrs. Silvera didn't die peacefully, but rather she was murdered brutally in her home, sadistically. And we can only allege while there's no break-in and entry. We can only allege while there's no break-in and entry that the gunshot that Mrs. Silvera received was from her husband. Her husband has a licensed firearm, which is taken by FITZ Bailey for ballistics, which FITZ Bailey is refusing to say to us if the ballistic has come back and what is the result. Or for that matter, other than the ballistics, what other line of inquiries that you are following? What other evidence have you gathered from the house, if any? Have you spoken to any of the people who was at the Silvera's residence on the 11th of November last year? Have you spoken to any of the people, particularly one who alleged in public that she was there and about 30 other people was there? Have FITZ Bailey spoken to any of these people? Have FITZ Bailey spoken to those who admit to have been there, or to those, or find out from those who admit to have been there who else were there? So if FITZ Bailey lied to us, if FITZ Bailey lied to us in the Andrew Holness lawyer murder, when Andrew Holness lawyer murdered that young man in his house, if FITZ Bailey lied to us, then if he lied to us in the case of Reverend Moore, where when FITZ Bailey was on camera lying to us, FITZ Bailey and Reverend Alvin, Bishop Alvin Bailey, who at Reverend Moore funeral gave us the pathology report that proved to us and explained the crime scene, that proved to us that Dr. Moore was murdered, but not only murder, an assassination style killing. FITZ Bailey told us those lies, even when he knew. But just like they expected the pathologists in Melissa Silvera killing to go on with the cover-up and the narrative, they had also expected Reverend Bishop Alvin Bailey carry on with the cover-up. But as a man of the cloth, FITZ Bailey, Reverend Bailey took his pulpiteering, if there's such a word, with integrity and honor. Because what Reverend Bishop Bailey couldn't have done at Orville Moore's funeral, FITZ Bailey, like you would stand on the pulpit regularly and lie, like you stand or sit and stare into the camera and lie to us regularly. Bishop Reverend Bailey couldn't do that. That's why he had to speak to the truth of the postmortem at Reverend Moore's funeral. Because he couldn't stare us down the face like you did and told us a blatant lie. What is stopping Patrick FITZ Bailey from leave Melissa Silvera killing open, just like they've left Jermaine murder open after Patrick Bailey killed him? Luckily, the pressure of social media prevent them from a complete cover-up of the Noel Maitland killing of Donnelly Donaldson. But was it a botched investigation? Will Madam DPP will be telling us not enough evidence to proceed with a trial? You did a complete cover-up of Reverend Orville Moore killing, even when we didn't believe the information you were giving us in public, because such an information couldn't possibly work. An accident of such magnitude, and then you manage, after surviving an accident of such magnitude, to hang yourself. We didn't believe it from the start, but Bishop Bailey exposed you at Reverend Moore's funeral. Your botched investigation and botched policing also has allowed the young man who was on trial for the killing of Dr. Bloomfield to escape from court and just vanish in a thin air. So you see the Shirley Duppyism. You see the Shirley Duppyism in our hierarchy, in our system. With all of those corruption and cover-up, FITZ Bailey, how can we be confident that the killing of Melissa Silvera, we will see closure and prosecution of the husband of Melissa Silvera, of Patrick Bailey, of members of the JDF or members of Ministry of Justice, the government or whoever may have ordered Orville Moore assassination? Will their botched investigation allow? Will their botched investigation and corrupt judiciary allow Noel Maitland to walk free? We must continue to keep FITZ Bailey under the scope. FITZ Bailey has the portfolio of providing us safety. FITZ Bailey has the portfolio of making sure competent and adequate crime fighting is done in our country. Nowhere in the world we would have the Deputy Commissioner of Police with the portfolio for crime and security is been involved. It's been involved in so much covering up of high-profile crime. Nowhere in the world FITZ Bailey would still be in his job. Only in a corrupt dictatorship. Only in a corrupt dictatorship. Rochelle, good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Rochelle Ricketts. Only in a corrupt dictatorship. Only in a corrupt dictatorship. Someone like FITZ Bailey would be able to be so incompetent, to be so corrupt, and is still in his job. We're not trying any case in public here. We're looking at the corrupt practices of the investigator who is tasked. We are looking at the corrupt practices of the chief investigator who is tasked with crime fighting and the security of our nation. FITZ Bailey office is in disrepute. FITZ Bailey has assisted in the public cover-up of the crime committed in Patrick Bailey's house. FITZ Bailey was having communication with Noel Maitland at the time when he was carrying out a high-profile investigation on Noel Maitland. FITZ Bailey told us a lie in public with regards to the killing of Dr. Moore, that it was an accident suicide. After which he was outed by Bishop Alvin Bailey, who gave us a breakdown of the post-mortem result. Give us then, FITZ Bailey, if you have no suspect or no lead, give us then a breakdown of Melissa Silvera's post-mortem result, like we saw Dr. Bishop Alvin Bailey gave us a breakdown of Bishop Reverend Moore post-mortem in public. If you have got no lead, if you have got no suspect, if you have got no lead and you have got no suspect, give us a full breakdown of Melissa Silvera pathology report, including FITZ Bailey time of death. This is where Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global ends its probe of FITZ Bailey corruption, the corrupt office of the Deputy Commissioner of Police, with the portfolio for crime and violence, who we can explore for public murder cover-up that FITZ Bailey is actively involved in and is assisting the cover-up. And we will not let this go. We will continue to ask these questions. Whether they answer them or not, we are going to continue to ask them. So I want to thank you very much. Hello, Sim Sim. Good evening and welcome. Is it good evening? Good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening on another Drive Time London Lunchtime Global. If we're well enough to be broadcasting tonight, we will run on and have a chit chat with you. But if I'm not coming on, I will inform you. But thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much, Patricia. Thank you very much for your support. And we always look forward to your support whenever time the thing goes ping that says I'm coming live. And please, if you have not done so yet, please do like, subscribe, and click your notification bell. So as soon as we put out any upcoming broadcast, you will be the first to be notified. So to those on TikTok, thank you very much for being here. On the X, on Twitch, on Facebook, on and YouTube, and to all of you on all the various platforms this evening. Thank you very much for being here, and glad to be of company with you, and we will see you later. Thank you very much, and good night.